それではお時間となりましたので、これより
The time has come to resume. We will be holding the panel discussion for whom does AI exist? Messages from the social application practitioners.
はじめにパネリストの皆様をご紹介いた
First
し
of
た
all,
い
I
と
would
思い
like to
ます。
introduce the
ま
panelists
ずは
to
日
you.
本電機
First
NEC
of all,
の今岡仁様です。
Mr.
どうぞよろし
Hitoshi
くお願いし
Imaoka,
ます。
NEC Fellow from NEC Corporation.
続きまして、ヤフー執行役員
Next,
CDO
Mr.
佐々
Kiyoshi
木清様
Sasaki,
です。よろしくお願いいたします。
Chief Data Officer of the Technology Group, Yahoo Japan Corporation. Mr.
続き
Kiyoshi
まして
Sasaki.
アイデミ代表取締役
Next,
CEO 石川明彦
Mr.
様です。
Akihiko Ishikawa, CEO of IDEMI.
最後にモデレーターを務めていただきます。
Lastly, the moderator
代表取
will
締
be
役所長
Mr.
元
YG Sekiguchi, President of the MM Research Institute and former Nikkei
関口様よろしくお願
editorial
いします。
writer. Mr. Sekiguchi, please.
ではここからの進行は関口様にお願いしたいと思います。
Now, here onward, I would like to ask Mr. Sekiguchi to moderate. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Sekiguchi. I am the head of the MM Research Institute. Today, we will be taking up the topic of for whom AI exists. This is the last session for today. Time allocated is 50 minutes. We will be discussing this theme with the panel. We have the most outstanding panel to discuss this topic. They are practitioners of IT in the front line. From their perspective, we will hear about the utilization of IT and AI and the impact on society. First of all, I would like to ask each panelist to speak for about 3 minutes to introduce themselves and speak to this topic for whom does AI exist. Mr. Imaoka, please. This is Imaoka of NEC. Now, I have been working in face recognition from about 2002. I've been working in this area extensively for about 20 years. I've been working in face recognition, and today I was working with other researchers on the front line. And another important area is medicine, AI, and healthcare is increasingly important. So I am the face of face recognition at NEC in terms of face recognition. Now, this is the result of face recognition. Recent data is shown here. You can see that error is around 0%, and we have been 0.4% has been achieved, which is number one for NEC. And what I want to emphasize is that AI has a variation. It's different. And since there is such a variation, it's very important when we look for different utilization. There is AI that is successful today, and also AI yet to achieve a success. This is biometrics. You can see that in society it is receiving much attention. It is expected to expand into various areas. And utilization as well as rule formulation will be increasingly important. Data is also very important. AI combined with healthcare will be very important. I'm looking forward to this discussion today.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Mr. Sasaki, CEO of Yahoo, Executive Director of Yahoo. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Sasaki from Yahoo. I am CDO, Chief Data Officer. So our company, Yahoo, established in 1996. Currently, we have about monthly active users, about 50 million monthly active users. And the number of downloads in the area of applications, we are number one. We offer more than 100 services. Out of those 100 services, we do generate diverse data on personal interest, such as search queries. We also have knowledge-packed news. We also have shopping, EC auction, and also location data as well. Including Yahoo, we have a whole group of companies. Yahoo News data, for example, it's used by Yahoo News company, but that can be used for shopping applications. Search data can be used for ebook company of one of the companies of Yahoo. So data can be utilized mutually, and AI, machine learning, can also be applied to data. Naturally, to develop services that we can offer. So as I said, we have more than 100 services. We have diverse data, but organizing them is not easy. So what technology should we use? What data should we accumulate? What are the formats? And also on the defense side, how can we observe governance? So since 2017, we have decentralized organization led by CDO. So that's what I do. In our company, Yahoo, we do utilize data internally, but what we want to do is to invite other companies in Japan and municipal governments. So that is why we develop data solution business. There are a lot of things that we can offer. If you're interested, who live in what area, what are the thoughts and ideas of these people, the people who have this shopping behavior, what are the paths that they use on the internet? By understanding all of those questions, we will be able to come up with data solutions useful to Japan. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of data on me because I've used PayPay recently. I'm pretty sure what I purchased and so forth. Yes, we can talk about that later. We also have Mr. Ishikawa from IDEMI. Thank you. I'm president of IDEMI KK. My name is Ishikawa, Akihiko Ishikawa, and my initials of my name is AI. Now the time is catching up with me. It's my time. Setting aside the joke, I'd like to introduce our company just briefly and also try to answer the question of this topic. For whom AI exists. So AI, not just AI, but all of the digital technologies. Utilizing digital technologies, we can actually close the distance between end users and the vendors, customers. Traditional way of strengthening the company's values is to develop Cs and then develop product and services. But we can start from data of customers on what customers are using, how they are using. Based on that, we will be able to personalize products. We can develop product to meet the needs, specific needs of users, thanks to the technology such as machine learning and also cheaper prices of hardware that is required. So personalized services delivered quickly, that's what is needed for AI. So IDEMI, our company, this is a spin-off venture company from the University of Tokyo. What we are trying to do is to provide internal assistance. Digital transformation is really the internalization of AI within a company. Our customers include manufacturers and banks, many of the conventional companies. What they are doing is to try to develop softwares internally so that they can accumulate the knowledge. So many venture companies sometimes do develop softwares for different companies. What we are trying to do is to make sure that the knowledge and skills will be accumulated in customers' companies. We have this IDEMI service where you can actually educate the internal human beings, make sure the know-how is accumulated internally within the company through joint development in our project. So internal development is what we do for our customers.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to pose the following question. Now, in terms of the contact point with AI, why did you become interested in AI? I know that this is your work. You must love your work. But Ishikawa-san, you were destined to be involved in AI with your name. But what was your encounter with AI? And we would also, you were working in different fields, but Imaka-san, would you like to start? From 2002, I've been working in face recognition for about 20 years. Machine learning has been very important. Because in the beginning, with the face recognition, is just comparing faces to recognize whether it's the same person or not. That is how we started. But over time, there have been changes. So we have introduced machine learning in order to enhance accuracy. Machine learning, AI, became very important in face recognition. It's very difficult to control. But once we start using this, it becomes deeper. And now it's become AI. So I find myself in the center of AI today. Sasaki-san, please. When I entered Yahoo, I was working in advertising. Advertising is very much focused on AI and science. That's the case now, but 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Advertising matching precision should enhance customization for the individuals were to be enhanced. And as a method, machine learning became very important. We started to increasingly use this. And with that, human rule-based thinking will not suffice. So we are looking for different dimensions. And that is the reason why we are making a corporate-wide effort to use AI. Ishikawa-san, please. Now, when I was studying, I loved to work in AI. That's why I started. And as a university venture, I started this. I was working researching water processing in urban planning, and there was a need to optimize the water usage. What I found to be very interesting is water processing data can be analyzed. Then, even with the absence of a physical model, degradation can be estimated. So I was very impressed. But I'm working not only with the computer science specialists, and it was very difficult to engage in machine learning. But the machine learning application technology is being enhanced. I started off with water processing, but I think AI is increasingly used in various applications. And I hope that we can make progress in accelerating the social implementation. So why is AI so important today? Looking back in history, in the past, there was a fifth-generation computer. Even prior to that, existed. There have been different waves. Matsuo-san of Tokyo University say is that this is the third wave of importance. Why is AI receiving so much attention today? Why is it so important? Sasaki-san, would you like to start now? Now, in terms of the first wave and the second wave, I was living, but I wasn't so much involved. But in the third wave of AI, in order to make AI useful, three factors are required: data, system, and science. These are required. In terms of data, its data volume is very important because that's the feedstock of AI. And after 2000, Web IoT have been introduced. At the user contact point, the data can be collected. This is very important. So significant data can be collected. Business type of data can be collected. In terms of the system, which is the second factor, even if you have voluminous data, you have to be able to process that. After 2000, parallel processing technologies have come to the fore, so voluminous data could now be processed. And the third point is the science. Deep learning is a good case in point. In the academia, there is a significant momentum in this field. We can see that because of volume of data, and we have the system to process that, and the science has been enhanced as well. So I think that is the reason why it is receiving so much attention.
So why AI, Mr. Ishikawa? I think you are the youngest amongst the panel. Similar to what Mr. Sasaki said, for me, there are also three things that are necessary: data and hardware and algorithm. These three are available since 2015. Data and hardware, as was already mentioned, were offered through smartphone and IoT devices. We have more data in terms of hardware. We have GPU hardware dedicated for analysis. The price is coming down. And lastly, algorithm as well. Deep learning technology since 2012, 2013 was in the spotlight, and image recognition, the audio recognition performance actually increased substantially since then. And in Japan, we had visual testing or the audio testing. But all of these are now possibly be automated with this technological advancement. That is a major change. So computer processing improvement is the key, summarizing what the two of you were saying. So Imaoka, what is your opinion? We have deep learning that is emerging, and its performance is improving. I have known the evolution of AI for many years. It was quite difficult to make it robust in a challenging environment. It required a lot of efforts of researchers, but deep learning can actually help a great deal. As a research, it was a surprise for me. And also, this most recent AI boom is really the true boom. In the eyes of researchers, the performance is truly improving. It is a substantial improvement. It's not just the improvement that researchers can feel and recognize. I am also looking at IT area, especially Nikkei newspaper has taken AI as headline. In 2006, we had science and technology plan that actually included AI, and the budget was allocated for AI development. If you look at Silicon Valley and in the United States and other overseas countries, they were actually working on AI from much earlier timing. So, Mr. Himaoka, what do you think of this? Each researcher recognized that necessity. Japanese researchers are successfully competing with many of these foreign researchers. But what is unfortunate today is that in Japan, it is not recognized in organizations in terms of investment and partnership. Individual companies are working separately. They are not working together to build the future AI. So Sasaki, how do you evaluate the current situation of Japan? Well, since 2016 or earlier than that, I think Japan has worked on this area. Having said that, Google, for example, had a large development at scale. The organization-wide effort, they did clearly foresee the advanced technologies to acquire data, and they became OSS that is available to all of us. So the first movers benefit all went to Google. I think trillion yen's of investment was made by major companies, and unfortunately, none of these companies existed in Japan. Mr. Ishikawa, AI, even before AI boom started, there was a big data boom. So there was much focus placed on data since 2015. But as was mentioned, 2016, everything changed with the backdrop of Japanese companies' competitors who actually changed their strategies, introducing Echo. The Amazon entered the home appliance market. Google started to research on autonomous driving, just like Uber. I'm not quite sure exactly what year, but around 2015. And that actually changed the thinking of Japanese companies. We have 3,700 listed companies in Japan. Many of them are manufacturers, and so they were competing with hardware companies, but they have to compete now with software companies. So that is why they have to be involved in AI development. As Mr. Sasaki said, Google played an important role.
I think Google was listed in 2005, but there was the IT bubble bursting prior to that. But cloud technologies and other technologies have been introduced, and Google was very successful in setting up an infrastructure, collecting data from users. They have established this mechanism. This has become the base foundation of AI development or sensor. Technologies have started to develop, and all the factors have come into play. And U.S. companies have been very successful in pioneering this area. I think Japan is also doing a good job as well. What is the strength of Japan in terms of AI? We might be behind, but how can we catch up? Marco-san, please. The strength of Japan in the cyber and the physical world, we should consider that cyber is limited to cyber. Golfer is very strong. It's about search. But Japan is strong in physical and cyber. And in the real frontline, manufacturing is very strong in Japan. By combining cyber and the physical is what Google has not done yet. And other companies have not been successful outside of Japan. So we can link, Japanese companies can link the real and the virtual. I think that is what the Japanese companies should be focused on. So it's in the industry area. Yes, industry and AI to be combined together is what is required. Amazon Echo has been mentioned, and they are coming closer to consumer, and AI has become very popular in that regard. So in this area, Japan is lagging behind the US, but Japan's edge is manufacturing, robotics, and sensing. Combining these technologies will enable Japanese companies to bring to bear its strength. Ishikawa-san, I think you are very much focused on this area. Would you like to comment? Yes, machine learning application areas or AI application areas are likely to accelerate going forward. This is where Japanese companies will have an edge. For example, there is the niche top industries, many such companies, same for machine learning. So, for example, translation, which can be applied to different industries. I think this is a major focus for Japanese companies. Mobility, specialization, or chemical material informatics specialization. In these specialized areas, Japan is extremely strong. What is often said is that R&D of Toyota is 1.1 trillion yen every year in terms of R&D for Toyota. Facebook's R&D expense is similar. But Toyota is focused on mobility, not just limited to machine learning. face like Mike Andrews said, that software is eating the world. The software is expanding in terms of applications everywhere. And niche top in the area of AI should be the focus for Japanese companies. And this is going to be the main battleground. And this is where Japan can bring to bear its strength. Is that the case? Generally speaking, what we can say is that Japan's edge is manufacturing as well as hospitality. So when you think of this perspective, whether it be manufacturing and hospitality, we have to always think about what the customers want. What is the expectation of the customers? How can we delight the customers who come to us? This is based on data. Data can be very useful. I think Japanese people have the sensibility to utilize data, to use data to do something. For AI application, I think in this basic sensibility is very strong for Japanese people. So in terms of education, I hope that this strength can be further enhanced. With the basic foundation being enhanced, I think top level strength will be enhanced as well. Japan is known for hospitality and manufacturing, utilizing data, utilizing AI. I think this is where Japanese company can be successful. What is often said is AI and IoT and big data, they are in a very close relationship. And big data analysis will be made possible, and AI will evolve, and that can be utilized in IoT. It's a spiral evolution.
Having said that, I think one of the challenges that we are confronted with is silos. In collecting data, it's very difficult to collect big data. We call that big data, but it's simply the collection of micro data. So that is my observation. I'd like to ask Mr. Sasaki, who's dealing with data. Yes, that's true in a way. Within Yahoo as well, we used to have silo by service. News, shopping, they were separated before, but we removed all those silos, make sure that data can be utilized and shared. The impact is large. Between companies, we should divide the wall, make sure that data flows freely, but it's difficult. Outside Japan, can they freely exchange data? Not exactly. There are some major companies in the United States, they are trying to have common platform to share data, but I haven't seen any great success yet. Widely, if you want to have common set of data, having standardized working process will be very difficult. So for us, we are good at even having silo, we may be able to share data between them. So we may be able to move step by step. In 2016, we had the fifth scientific basic plan was introduced. And there was another plan introduced, which is to promote the data exchange between the public and the private. Even before that, the public data was closed. We introduced a major plan in the same year to promote data exchange, data flow. There has been some change. How do you see this, Mr. Ishikawa? In our company, we have multiple manufacturers and financial institutions. They are our customers. As Mr. Sasaki said, to exchange data, we haven't even reached the stage of demonstrating data flow, free data flow, because data is not fully analyzed even within the company. So we can carry out the internal project to fully utilize data, link separate data internally within the company. If that results in higher profits, we will be able to communicate that. So it is important to have flagship project internally. But today, that is challenging even. So it is important to link separate data. That is one of the methods. So what we have to do is to start with closed data and make success out of it internally first. So, Imaoka, what is your opinion? What is your thinking? We talked about data communication, data exchange. We are moving in the right direction, but not quickly enough. If you look at the current status within companies, within government organizations, we have multiple silos. We need to get rid of them. Good example is IT vendor in Denmark, the largest IT vendor, NEC acquired. And we had discussion with them. In Denmark, 5 million is the population size. The area is similar to Hokkaido, as the population is similar to Hokkaido as well. In Northern European companies, there are a lot of lessons that we can learn. Medical data, for example, and I forgot, maybe traffic data. Maybe the distance that the people use to bike and the medical data can be linked together, for example. It's just an example, but that's something that we should mimic. It's a good lesson for Japan. As Mr. Imaoka said, medical and AI can be combined together. Can you explain that further? Medical application where AI is involved can evolve substantially. Doctors, there are severe shortage of doctors. They are working in a very severe environment. If we introduce AI, we can actually ease their workload, and even every one of us, we may have a chance to live longer. So introducing AI to medical application, have that evolve quickly, meaning that we will be able to have brighter and wider future. Mr. Sasaki, you are actually using AI and big data as well. As we try to utilize these data, what would be the best possible applications for us? What is good application?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer in a nutshell. As already mentioned by the panelists, to be useful is where AI should be used. It has to be at the right opportunity. That is the reason why it's gaining momentum today. For companies, the pain points and the challenges, if it can be resolved by AI and data, I think that should be the focus. We shouldn't compel use of AI in certain areas and to use AI for a certain objective. So the challenges for companies should be identified and resolved with data if it's appropriate. It may not be appropriate to use AI, so it has to be appropriate use. For the government to go to drive companies in one direction with one objective doesn't sit well for me. So if you're struggling and facing challenges, it could naturally lead to the use of AI. In terms of companies, the user could have 100 employees. So that means that one-on-one should suffice, but with the users many, then AI could be useful. It depends on the challenges besetting the companies. Data, AI, if it's possible. If there is a common understanding in Japan, I think it would be a good thing. So data and AI can be utilized. Otherwise, this would not be an option. Imaoka-san, you mentioned that in medicine, AI can be very important in healthcare. IBM, Jerry Lametti, who was a past CEO, I had the opportunity to speak to him. He said that they're using Watson. And in emerging nations, the doctors may not have cancer specialists, but for people with breast cancer, apparently in emerging nations they are quite prevalent. So the doctor can provide that information through Watson, and the appropriate treatment can be provided. And in fact, many lives have been saved. So in healthcare, AI can be very useful. Would you like to weigh in? In cancer, so image diagnostics, you can see that there are cancers that can be identified, and some cancers are difficult to identify. Now, AI is as good as a human expert in identifying cancer today. So the skilled doctor level cancer detection can be made by using AI. So I think globally the level will be enhanced. Because there is a healthcare disparity. And in terms of the doctors, I'm sure with the use of AI, skills can be enhanced with such knowledge. Ishikawa-san, in what areas do you have the expectations for AI? So healthcare is very important, and so manufacturing and mobility are areas where expectations are running high. For 2020, what is most important is first and foremost to come up with a flagship use case that is successful using AI and generating profit or cost reduction achieved by the use of AI. I think that's very important. I think important pillars are twofold. First of all, stakeholders must achieve success in certain areas, and 100% success may not be the case. And I think this is where it can be very successful. For example, cancer can be automatically diagnosed using an image. But I think collaboration between humans and AI can be very important. Without reducing the precision, a cost can be reduced. This precision doesn't have to be 100%, but cost can be reduced. This is a good example of a successful case.
The misconception of AI, for example, does that exist? Introducing AI, it could be simply an extension of Excel. So it's sort of a quasi-AI. So there may be some misconception of AI. Do you see some of these misconceptions, difficulties? As you mentioned, excessive expectation and too low expectation, both can be possible. Introducing AI, you may expect that everything will be resolved. That's not true. The face recognition is different because it's element technology to make it easy to reduce mistakes in the customs clearance. But AI does not solve all the problems. If I am going to improve something, we were asked to introduce AI. The 70 or 80% of the time is spent to collect data. So it's pretty down-to-earth, steady work that is required. So that actually does not meet the excessive expectation level of the management, the president of the company, for example. So on the other hand, though, you might introduce AI and try to expect an impact, but you may have silos. You simply introduce AI only locally, having limited achievement. So you'd say, well, as we expected, nothing works. AI is not useful. So that's, on the other hand, low expectation. So as Mr. Ishikawa said, it is important to try to get low-hanging fruits first. So too high, too low expectation, both of them are problems. We have to look at the accuracy of AI. Take face or image recognition or autonomous driving. You expect to have 100% accuracy. And of course, we can achieve, if we can achieve 100%, it's great. But if it's lower than 100, when we have error, what could happen? We have to have fail-safe methods. To what extent can we accept the error? We have to have systematic logic thinking in introducing AI, which is not 100% accurate. So it is a matter of how to use AI that is not 100% perfect. If we can use it, or if you say that it's no use, you won't be able to move along. So those who can make use of that, the AI that is not perfect, it will prosper. Mr. Ishikawa? Why do we have excessive expectation? Due to that is a lack of a misunderstanding. It's like a boy and a girl in love. In the beginning, you only see great things about the other person. But as you go along, you will better understand. So in the initial relationship, we often talk about the values, the benefits, because that's what you want to listen to. That's what you want to hear. You understand it. But on the other hand, there are also downsides. You have to understand shortcomings so that you will understand the problems that are most suitable for machine learning to solve. When we have higher resolution of machine learning solutions, engineers will be able to work better, and that gives you a much better result. Another concern is here in Japan, AI engineers and researchers and students who want to study AI think the whole population is much smaller compared to the US, for example. True? Students studying computer science may not be so many as American students, but they don't have to be computer science students. There are other students who actually apply machine learning. Our company teach in Waseda University. We had 2-day workshop in university. We have about 100 students participating. 90% of them majored in something else than computer science. Young people, even though they do not major in computer science, they can actually research machine learning. Take that as a second major. So I am optimistic. I express that concern because government is trying to promote AI, so that is the current trend in Japan. Right in the center of Tokyo, you don't see data science department. Maybe outside Tokyo, there are data science taught in universities trying to get more students.
But in the center of Tokyo, there's a lack of schools teaching such computer science. What's your view? It depends on in terms of faculty, legacy universities are not doing a good job in terms of making changes. But the university students in Tokyo today are eager to participate in internships. And in fact, there isn't anyone who's not participating. And short term, trading, it's not really short term, but in the mid to long term, working for a venture company or working for a major company is becoming prevalent, and young people are often interested in computer science for the purpose of analysis. Therefore, for university should change and be more flexible according to the needs of society and change the faculty perhaps. But that is not the case. But I think students are being more flexible. So I don't think we have to be overly pessimistic. We are now running out of time, so I'd like to move on to the last point. We have discussed very important areas. We shouldn't have excessive expectations. To show results is very important. To monetize is very important. Furthermore, the utilization of data collection should be appropriate. These are some of the challenges discussed today. In the case of Japan, with the Suga administration, it is can also be referred to as the digital administration. Abenomics was famous for the 3 hours. Financial strategy as well as fiscal measures, and I think that's run its course. So the third area, growth strategy, deregulation, revitalizing the private sector needs to be improved. So we are trying to make efforts in this area. My question is as follows. What should be the focus of the Japanese government, especially in the area of AI? What should be the focus for Japan? Imaoka-san, please. In the case of Japan today, various initiatives are underway in regional areas, but they will identify certain area, such as Shenzhen in China or Silicon Valley in the United States. That could be similar to Tsukuba in Japan. But it seems that special zones are identified to focus on AI, having a special economic zone, conducting demonstration projects, and utilize as a district. I think that would be very useful if we can do that, focus on a certain district. Expectations for the government, right? In terms of education, I wanted to say the following as well. In terms of university, similar to using PC for your own research, utilize AI as a method of finding solutions. So I think we will see progress. But even at the lower school age, it should be adopted. Mathematics is often said to be not useful in society, but it's mathematical thinking, logic that students are learning. But it's similar. It's similar to history, programming, and the utilization of data. It should be more prevalent in schools at a lower age. In terms of country, data adoption of the government is lagging behind private sector companies. But against the backdrop of COVID-19, government is making progress as well. I think there should be more human resources exchange between the private sector and government. Both sides will be able to understand each other better. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that for companies in municipal government, in order to promote the utilization of data, companies must make an effort, vendors must also make an effort. But on the part of the government, what they can do is provide subsidies or designate certain zones for promoting data utilization. That would be very helpful. Yahoo will also be making effort in this regard.
Mr. Ishikawa, I'd like to answer your question from the viewpoint of a startup. This is what I expect out of government organizations. That will be the order placed by government to startup companies. We are providing services to government organizations, but we have to participate in competition. And there has been a very high hurdle. receiving order actually start working takes a long time. For startup to provide services to government is challenging. Of course, it's the enterprises that plays the important role, but small systems, I think startup companies will be able to provide. The government should be willing to procure products and services from startup companies so that we will be able to provide feedback of startup companies to the government. Especially enterprise management, what do you expect of them at this venue? The chairman of NEC, CETIC opening, gave a keynote presentation. So for us to be able to promote AI, what do you expect of enterprise leaders? Not exactly the expectation, but I think the most important thing is partnership. There is so much one single company can do. So partnering with other companies. What I'd like to see is AI promoted by all of the companies together. So enterprises should be willing to partner with many others. That's what Japan should pursue. Data and AI, for them to be effective, we know exactly how effective they are already. Enterprises that have not used data yet, they should give opportunities to young employees. Ask the questions to young employees, how should they adopt data usage and so forth. And they're professional vendors, so they should be willing to work with these vendors as well. It is true. The older, more experienced managers depend on their own experiences. Yes, enterprise managers, I hope they are willing to invest in digital technologies, including startup companies. So it's not just internally, but externally as well. They should communicate that they are promoting AI, especially even the legacy industry players. Will they be able to continue to grow with conventional technologies? Can they survive? They would question themselves. Especially young people, they are learning digital technologies. And they're willing to use digital technologies inside the companies that they are working for. But the top management should give them opportunities. And middle management, top management should communicate that to middle management. So communication internally and externally would be important.
So I wanted to ask more questions. I wanted to ask many more questions, but in the analog world, people who are being successful are at the top management. But with the internet, the cloud have been introduced, and with that, business and manufacturing have undergone significant change. So young people with a fresh mind should express their views, and we should listen to them. Let's give a big applause to the three wonderful panelists from wherever you are. Thank you. Imaoka-san, Sasaki-san, Ishikawa-san, Sekiguchi-san, thank you very much.